Salam again, everybody. This is Isaac Mirori, and we're here to continue with our project of vocalizing my book. We are in the educational chapter, the final session, and today I'm so happy that the 25th day of March and this whole month we remember our women, we treasure them. I love you, mom, my sisters, and the mother of my children, my special better half, and all the sweet ladies that I've known all my life, neighbors, friends, colleagues, schoolmates, classmates, business associates, and so on and so forth. So I celebrate you this day when we commemorate as the African Orthodox. We commemorate the Theotokos, or if you like, the Virgin Mary. This is it is liturgically called Holy Annunciation. The time Mary was given the announcement by Angel Gabriel, according to the Jewish Masoretic text, and also the Greek text, which is the New Testament text, which is Greek Aramaic text. She was given this news, and I think she was just a teenager, and she accepted the will of God without any questions. And so it is a special day, spiritually and practically. We remember our women practically, and spiritually we remember the renewal of the world, or rather the kind of the universal space here on earth that God intended to have when He created Adam and Eve. And so Mary is said to become the first Eve, who now is not does not have the carnal interest of this universe, as the Western civilization takes us towards, like the first Eve, but she becomes the second Eve, very young, dedicated to the temple, born of old parents, Joachim and Anna, and she accepts the will of God at a tender age, in a very abnormal, or if you like, supernatural way, getting pregnancy without knowing a man. And this was grievous. It was almost a crime, which tantamounts to treason, because how do you get pregnancy without a husband? And so it is a mystery that all Kenyan and African societies, and also the global society, needs to interrogate, because if it is a myth again, then it will just be another myth like those from the Greco-Roman world. But those myths did not have an impact in the global community like this myth of Mary, Jesus, and Joseph has had an impact for the last 2,000 years. So the question will be why? And so if you're able to answer that question, you'll be able to understand whether this is a myth or it was a reality, a historical reality. Now, we continue with our Timbuktu, the first global university that was in the Sahel, or if you like, the Songhai region. And so the Songhai region in west of Africa, and not the west towards the Atlantic coastline, though it touched some part of Ghana. It includes the Hausa, who are now in the geographical location of what we call Nigeria, or Niger. also included the Wolof community. There was the Tamashek and the Fulfilde. And so traditionally, according to manuscripts by a guy called Ali, in the poems, these were poetic people, and they were occult scientists, and they were good botanists. And so poems have been written about death as a very important subject of human life. This is one of the puzzles and the questions, existential questions that people ask themselves. And religion has really tried to answer it. Science has really not done any justice to this subject, and I don't think politics and school curriculum systems and the economic pillar of development have done anything close to that. If anything, these sectors have made people fear death, and people have come up with technologies of cloning themselves, and also probably trying to understand and investigate how much more that somebody has to live on earth, so that you can be able to do things and be able to plan yourself in this mystical journey. But among the Africans, this was a very good stage of life. It was a passage of right, and so death was not something bad. It was not caused by the devil, because Africans never had the devil or Satan. And so people are looking forward to death. What was only not understood was a death of a young person who had not graduated to the level of starting their own families. This was only sudden death. But any death of somebody who had given birth to a child, or even had chosen a bride. And that's why people are not waiting. You court for 3 years, you just there jumping around. You had to really get married and get busy as soon as possible, because these kids were really what we can say bearers of our eternity, because it is your name that will be carried forward. And also when people, because they were risky ventures, when young people got circumcised in whatever way, piercing, cutting, and so on and so forth, or removal of teeth, depending on what your community did, they used to go to become warriors. And so these were risky ventures where young people were lost, but there was a system and an order of replacing them. And so we need to appreciate where we come from. And so death was a very important question, and there are very many poems about the same. And there is this guy who is called Baba. This is the guy, Ahmed Baba, a very prolific sultan in Morocco. And he suffered a very great loss from the Moroccan. At that time, it was not Morocco, but there was an Arabic army that came and stole his collection of 1,600 books. And this guy had really done a lot of work. Himself had written 70 books on jurisprudence, in grammar, syntax. And according to the collection of Muhammad Bagayogo al-Wangari, who died in 1594, his teacher Ahmed Baba was a very keen scholar, and he really delivered. And in terms of how he taught, he could deal with a student until he himself was satisfied. It it was not just this transactional way of educating students for exams, and then they move to the next step, half baked or full baked, it doesn't matter. And so Alwangari is one of the people who writes these poems, and he reminisces the Tumbak too. There was a Ghanaian historian called Tariq Al Sudan, also a very prolific guy, and especially in the Songhai Empire, who had written 1,556 books. And so there were very many people from Mali who produced very important manuscripts that are really studied up to today. And I am happy in 2008, there was an exchange, an expo exchange between the country of Mali and South Africa, and they did an exhibition which whose arrangement began in 2003, and so you can see it took 5 years because there were very many collections that had to be pre-studied so that they can be understood, and people when visiting the galleries will get sufficient information. And so this is it is very encouraging that people are able to dig back into their history and they're able to do an exhibition. But what really hurts me is that all these things are going to be done and they're good, but at the end of the day, everything is done out of the commercial interest. If you look at the feminist, it comes through commercialization of that agenda. If you look at the mainstreaming of Africans into businesses, so you'll find a lot of NGOs coming up with money, the civil societies given by the developed countries because they have an interest. And so you will also see churches were used back then, the new colonial governments, and how when governments became rigid and found their own path away from the colonial masters found a way of pressure groups, the civil society and the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations. And all these things are going to be done, but a lot of dough is going to be used, a lot of dough is going to be given out, and so it's another sellout. And I probably will plead with our African people in as much as we need this money, because this is the new earthly hope that we were given. It wasn't there. We used to have all these things, but today we are being taught on how to buy them while they were free during our empire. So let us not sell out our history. Let us tell our history. Let us develop from there. Let us graft. I know there is a lot of time period, like I always say, 800 years of oppression where Africans did not develop whatever their ancestors had begun. And so we lost a very big historical time and space. And so we're going to carry our luggages, dust off, and move on. And so this exhibition to me was very important, and you must give it up to President Thabo Mbeki and President Amadou Toumani Touré, who looked at these the Timbuktu scripts and scholarship. And so there was sayings from the wise people who said that the ink of a scholar on Judgment Day, and this was derived from an Islamic wisdom, during Judgment Day will be measured against the blood of martyrs who fought and found. For them, they were praising scholarship. Even if you're a Muslim and you have not endowed yourself in Islamic studies, so you may really, even if you die as a martyr, you may really not have great space in the spiritual reward or heavenly reward, as somebody who had put down pen and paper for you to get the wisdom of revelation. And so an Algerian professor, Abdul Al Karim Magili, commissioned by the great Hausa leader Mamadou Rumfa, was responsible for education. And a lot of people have looked this also in Nigeria or in Algeria, and it has been studied, though some of these works have been claimed by French scholars, because Algeria was a colony of the French, and some of the scripts were stolen. Like I always say, we don't have a history, and sometimes we have an identity crisis because of these 800 years of oppression. And so there's luckily enough, God has never allowed everything to get lost. There are fragments, or what people call remnants. So in 1759, the commentaries were written by Abu Abdallah Farah on legal aspects and dietary, jihad, penal code, cleansing ritual, marriage, prayers, alms, and also arithmetic, didactic poems of the 18th in the 18th century. And so some of these things are really encouraging. And I don't know how much history you know about yourself and about your country and about your people, but it is to me it is a challenge to all of us. Let us understand our roots so that we can be able to bear real original fruits. Finally, I would like to end with one of the greatest tragedy of life, and I think colonization never began now. Queen Elizabeth I of England was involved in the destruction of the Timbuktu. When Sultan Muhammad the 11th overthrew Sultan al-Mansur in the Songhai Empire, the England queen was involved in arms trade or arms exchange, and so their interest was gold. They got their Songhai gold. The Songhai Empire was destroyed. They took along with them, because they didn't have the knowledge of working gold, so they took with them 1,400 goldsmiths to go and melt the Songhai gold. We don't know about them, and this was in 1591. We don't know what happened to them. They went as slaves, and I mean, it was a sad and tragic moment for the history, for this rich history to end up like that. And so for me, it is actually not looking back with a lot of resentments, but with a lot of pride, and trying to understand our oppressors. They are not here, but trying to understand why would one do that to other people who have no any business with them. We didn't have any business with England or other continents. I mean, we were so busy trying to do something for ourselves. And so it is something that we really need to pick up from. Look at the issues that I have raised about our modern commercialized Western type education system, and all those who profit from this in terms of having jobs should not be rigid of any changes, because we really need to look back and make our universities unique. No European or Asian student can come and study in Africa, because there is nothing unique about the universities in Africa. But there's a lot of unique things in the universities in Asia, in Middle East, and in the West, and the Eastern Europe, and that's why we go there. And so it is a challenge. Let us stop being transactional and let us be transformational. Baraka mingi sana. Thank you so much. And God keep you, and may you continue to be zealous, enthusiastic, and joyous about your roots, where you came from, and where you are looking towards, and what mark you'd want to leave. I'll see you soon. We're going to change in the next month of April. This month we were doing a lot of video editing and so on and so forth. Next month of April we're going to shift gears, and we're going to look at the Christian, the Muslim, and the Jewish season of Lent, Ramadan, and Passover. And it is a very spiritual month. So see you soon, and be blessed.